All right, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today for the webinar here, introducing CECLSolver, tool to help you get CECL ready fast. I have also with me today Laura Parrish, the VP of Association Services on the call, and just wanted to give a quick thank you to all attendees. Laura?
Thanks, Jason. Just wanted to say hello to everyone and thank you for joining us today. This is a collaboration between Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, where we've picked up a great partnership with QwickRate and are excited to show you a tool that can help you, manage some of the CECL things that are going on that are upcoming in our future. So, in addition to that, they're really a great educator as well. So we're excited to hear today what Jason has to say. And again, just thank you on behalf of our associations and just joining us for a look at some products that might be able to help you guys out.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Absolutely. Here, before we kick this off, we are in what's called presentation mode. So you can hear us. We can't hear you, but if you do have a question, just click the question icon on your screen and submit that. I'll answer that towards the end of the webinar. Also, after this, you'll receive an email with the slides along with the link to the recording, so you can watch this or pass it along to any other folks who might have interest at the credit union. But let's jump in here. My name is Jason Heinrich. I've been working with credit unions for over 12 years now on both the customer service and the sales side, but let's jump right in, right? We're here, I'll talk about CECL. So let's start with what was wrong with the incurred loss model, right? I know one of the comments that we hear on our demos is, what was wrong with the current incurred loss model? Why the change? And well, this goes back to the last crisis, and in FASB's opinion, they felt the incurred loss model really did a disservice to financial institutions by allowing them to basically not acknowledge a loss until they were probable. So that approach used to recognize impairment losses on financial assets had really been long identified as a major weakness, resulting in delayed recognition of those losses. So at this point, really, FASB had a couple options, right? Either fix the methodology or do nothing. So if you do nothing and then this problem reoccurs, well, then you expose yourself to people saying, why didn't you do anything to fix it? So clearly FASB decided that was not going to be their solution, so they decided to fix it, and CECL is that fix. Unfortunately for us, it means learning a new way to calculate your reserve. But at the end of the day, we're just calculating the reserve. We have a saying here that, we're really playing the same game, just with a new set of rules. We're still going to focus on reserves. We're just going to go about it in a slightly different manner. So let's talk about those changes. I think you'll see here there are a number of areas where CECL and the CECLSolver can feel very similar to things we've done in the past with the incurred loss methodology. And one of the reasons we like the WAR method is its similarities to the incurred loss model. But first, CECL will be different in that we'll be looking at losses over a longer life of the loan approach. Instead of looking at losses over an annual, maybe even a couple year look back, that really most institutions do now with their ALLL. So now you'll make allowance for losses over the life of the loan pool. And there are some similarities. We're still going to pool assets. We're going to make Q factor adjustments and make assumptions to justify those Q factor adjustments. So we're going to build on some of those similarities. We'll make some slight changes along the way to comply with CECL. So what does CECL mean for you? First, there is no one mandatory method for calculating your reserve under CECL. It's been a bit of a problem there, right? No guidance can be very difficult. But the NCUA has mentioned several different methodologies, like the WAR method, but the choice is completely up to you. You choose your path, and you will have to send that to your examiner, and that's really going to be the case, no matter what partner you choose. You really need to understand where your final reserve number is coming from and document that appropriately. So the NCUA has also stated that your chosen reserve methodology match the complexity of your portfolio. And for most traditional credit unions under a few billion in asset size, right, the small guys, the call report driven analysis using the WAR method will be perfectly acceptable. You do not need to engage in highly complex modeling or loan level analysis. So, current expected credit loss from theory to practice. When it comes to implementing CECL, there are some real practical considerations. First, how much data have you collected? Do you have detailed loan level data going back at least 5 years? To do a more complex loan level analysis, you will need to have this data already collected and reconciled before you even start your first actual reserve calculation, a process that in what I've talked to over the last year and a half doing demos could take multiple years just to get to the starting point. For other warm options out there, what is the actual cost? Is it Excel based? How much actual work do you think you have to allocate to calculating your reserve with some of these other warm methods out there? A free option might not cost money, but they tend to be a bit more expensive when it comes to your time. So how about data from outside your credit union? We have the loss. How have the loss trends have been in your state? How do your losses compare? Having good internal data is obviously important, but having comparable peer data will be very helpful, especially in areas where we have little to no losses. So peer data can really help to establish reasonable and supportable CECL reserves and further support your reserve figure. But at the end of the day, we feel the CECLSolver really hits that perfect balance of simplicity and automation while still giving you the ability to add complexity where needed. So that is why we introduced our CECLSolver. In the very beginning, we saw the original guidance for CECL, and that guidance was for more complex, massive institutions, and we knew that would fit for most of us here on Main Street, right? So we set out to create a CECL tool that was easy to use, collected the relevant data for you, and honestly created a CECL tool that was just easy to understand and follow, right? We wanted to create a CECL solution that was quick to implement, easy to maintain from month to month or quarter to quarter, and we feel we have done exactly this with the CECLSolver tool for credit unions, which brings us to the live demo here. And let me switch screens really quick. All right. There we go. Now, this is the live demo. This is a Louisiana credit union, I believe about a little over 40 million in asset size, but it's a pretty traditional, about 22 million in overall loans as of the end of Q1. So this is the tool. It's all completely interactive. It all lives on QwickRate, so it's all cloud-based. You log into QwickRate, access CECLSolver here, take you into the tool right here. So we are using the warm method along with your call report to create the basis for our tool. So all of our loans are pooled by those loss segments on the call report. Once you step outside of these segments, you're on your own then. You have to collect that data, if you want to make, multiple tranches of in your vehicle loans of good credit, bad credit. Well, that goes outside of the public data that is available. And typically, for a small credit union, is going to be quite a bit of overkill, especially when it comes to some of these other segments here. We'll discuss that here in a second. But once you have the loan pools identified, so we're using the call report again, the next step is to actually calculate what the weighted average remaining maturity is. The warm, so that's the warm part of the warm analysis. So let's say, for instance, let's pick on used vehicles for today. Let's say it's, we'll make this a nice round number here, 3 years, right? So for CECL, they're saying you need to forecast the next 3 years worth of charge-offs for your used vehicle loan portfolio. As if, that was such an easy thing to do, right? I mean, I couldn't even tell you what the weather's going to be this weekend, much less, what losses are going to be out in the next few years, right, in your portfolio. So that's really where our tool goes to work. Once you plug in that number, we look back and says, well, what's happened the last 3 years? Because we think, hey, that's going to be the best representation of what you might expect to happen over the next 3 years. And that number is right there. So as soon as you plug it in, the warm, we tell you exactly what the credit union historic loss rate has been for that duration for your used vehicle loans. And we can see right here, this credit union has had a loss rate of 1.75 in used vehicles. I plugged in some other warms here, and these are going to be pretty pretty close to what the real numbers are, but 0.89, a little short for credit cards. Payday loans, very short, typically have a duration less than 6 months. Typically, the average is closer to about a quarter, about 3 months. They have no student loans. Here, we have all other unsecured loan lines of credit. How about 2.5 years now? The call report just changed, and these two actual segments used to be combined in just the all other loan category. So we'll have to untangle some data here because there is a shift in how we're collecting that data. But we can see all the warms, and we can see all of the associated losses here. So all things being considered, this is the starting point for your CECL analysis. These are the historic loss rates that your credit union has had over these durations, right? And we think, hey, that's going to be a good place to start. The second half of CECL is going to be to kind of play around with these numbers to account for the changes due to current and future conditions. But before we do that, let's actually take a little look at this data here. So click on the Historic Analysis tab, and this is all the data that we're collecting on your call report or on your credit union. Again, we've already done this for every single credit union in the country, but here we can see the historic loan balances over time. Each one of the durations here, the different warms, they're all kind of denoted by these blue bars, right? This represents just our look back. Now, again, there is no real set methodology for calculating your reserve here. Basically, everyone has their own interpretation. So some tools might say, hey, we'll look back 10 years, divide it by 10, multiply it by the losses, or however long your duration is to get that number. We're looking straight look backs, right? So credit cards, really short 1-year duration versus maybe a mortgage, which has a much longer duration. So we're looking at a lot longer time frame for those, but go a little bit shorter for some of these other, depending on the actual, duration of this pool of loans. But here we have your loan balances. And let's look at the legacy segmentation data. So this is what the call report looked like before this Q1, right? So this is what we were kind of tracking before the call report changed. So here we've got your portfolio charge-offs, right? The gross charge-offs at each of the loan segments. And this is just a great compilation of all your data because we can quickly and easily identify trends. We're going up. We have elevated losses, declining losses, increasing losses. We can see all that here quickly and easily, along with all the kind of averages of losses over time, right? Obviously, 2020, 21 were outlier years. To be kind. So we've seen some pretty crazy stuff happen the last couple of years. A lot lower losses than what we might have seen in the past, and definitely a lot lower losses than what we would have expected, considering everything that was going on at the time, right? So a lot of craziness been happening here. Gross charge-offs. We're going to look at the recoveries as well and put that all together to get a final net charge-off. So we're really where the rubber meets the road. Here is this credit union's loss rates over time, going back pretty far. So we can see the ebb and flow of things happening. Pretty consistent here, right? 100,000, and then things really quieted down. Last year, very quiet, 46,000 in net charge-offs. Now, one of the interesting things now that we've let's look at this all other loan category, right? So before we had these two separate segments. Now we've got the all other unsecured and all other secured, right? That used to make up that pool of loans, right? This pool of losses for all other loans. But now that they're separated out, we have to you have to help us a little bit to kind of figure out where really were those losses. So here we've got the all other unsecured and the all other secured. And right now, if we kind of look, they're all tracking pretty close, right? Identically, right? We kind of said, okay, whatever this loss rate was up here, together, if we look at ratios, we can see that, right? 73, 32, 56. We see that here as well, 73, 32, 56, right? So we don't know where exactly those losses were. So let's say that for sure that all those losses happened in the unsecured loans. So the 1.42 is there. For the all other, I'm going to reduce that down. Let's say it's 0.05, right? Just small losses, but realistically, all our losses happen here. So I just made a quick adjustment to the numbers there. And now if I go to the summary page, we can see that change. So now our loss rate on our All other secured non-real estate loan lines is 5 basis points, and the bulk of those losses we said, hey, happen in our unsecured loan lines of credit. That one is still with a 1.42. So we can quickly and easily get things back on track, right, to comply and kind of match back up to the new call report segment. Now, the next half of CECL then is going to be to kind of determine, well, we know what's happened in the past. How are things going to change for current and future conditions? So let's look at that used vehicle again, used vehicle loan segment. So if I'm going back to the historic data, I can see, let's go look here in the used vehicle segment, 19,000, 64, 51, 18. So there was a kind of a spike, a dip, kind of spiked again. And since then, we're having a declining losses. So let's say going forward, I expect my losses to continue to stay low for this year and possibly into next. So I think I'm going to reduce my historic loss rate of a 1.75 by about 25 basis points. And I'd say, hey, I think a 1.51 is really what I think my future expected loss rate is going to be. We take that number then and apply it to your current loan population, and then we get a reserve for that segment there. Now, a big key to this is going to be to kind of keep detailed notes, right? This whole second half of the process is just your basic prediction of the future, So you want to create a narrative to say, hey, why do you think this adjustment is relevant, or why are we going down, right? Are the trends happening that way? Are you seeing declining losses? Things like that. All that's going to go into play here into your adjustments. But let's look a little bit closely, right? Realistically, you're going to have multiple, maybe different adjustments make up one number. So here we have our Q factor tab, and here we can actually have multiple different adjustments on different metrics. So ones I like are past due, maybe some other internal data. But if you're looking at past dues, right, are they increasing? Are they decreasing? What are the trends? This is certainly going to be an indicator of future performance of your loans, right? So if you're seeing back here with no losses in your new vehicle segment, but then all of a sudden, hey, you've got some past dues, something's going on. And let's be a little conservative. We'll just throw 10 basis points into reserve to account for maybe some elevated past dues. In other areas like new vehicle, maybe it's declining, and we can add a negative adjustment here. So things can move in multiple different directions. They're all going to add up to one final number here. We have additional areas to add in your notes. Another big thing that the NCUA has talked about is we're trying to find some external or environmental factors to help you with forecasting. Something like Louisiana unemployment rate, right? Look at this and see if the spike in unemployment rate here in 2020 correlated to losses in your portfolio. And if we're looking at this credit union here, when the unemployment rate spiked, they saw zero losses in mortgages. Same thing for vehicles, right? No recent losses that really had any impact. In addition, we look at the peers data, they're also seeing declining losses. So unfortunately, something like Louisiana unemployment rate, U.S. unemployment rate, GDP, they're just not going to be great indicators for what's happening at credit union. But what is this peer data, right? So let's look at all other unsecured. And these blue bars represent this credit union's losses, and this green represents the peer's losses. When I say peer, we're looking at peer groups 1 through 6, right? 1 being less than 2 million, 2 is 2 to 10 million, then we go 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 500, and 500 and above, right? Those are our groups that we're working with that the NCUA breaks you into. They also break you into the state, a regional, and national level. So we can look at a lot of different metrics here. So what we're doing, back when we're looking at this historic data, right, with your WARMs, we're also doing that for every single credit union in the country as well, with the exact same durations as yours. So this is a great apples to apples comparison of other credit unions in your area. So here we can see in all of the loan segment here that the kind of the other credit unions about this size and peer group 3 in the state have had almost identical losses, right? That's tracking beautifully. So one thing to think about in, say, new vehicle loans, right, where you have very light losses, if we start seeing some real spikes here in losses, that's going to be your kind of canary in the coal mine moment to say, hey, looks like other credit unions about my size in the state are seeing elevated losses. let me go ahead and add in some adjustments. Let me increase my reserve in that segment to be, to kind of preempt some losses that may appear in your portfolio down the road. So great to have that information available. Here's the used vehicle segment, kind of, again, tracking very nicely there. Let's look at, let's go back to the first mortgages. This is a great one. They have a small portfolio, but if we were to start seeing some spikes here, that's going to be your note. Say, hey, something's going on. In addition to that peer adjustment, we also have hard-coded just a general economic adjustment, right? We know there's a little bit of, turmoil or turbulence about to come, right? We just came out of COVID, and now it looks like we're going to be going right back into a recession. Obviously, inflation's through the roof. Gas prices are going crazy. So you might feel, in my area, things are getting, a little tough. Let me add some adjustments. But you might be with a credit union that typically doesn't get affected by, swings in the economy. So things like a teacher's credit union, they typically will stay working, even though, everything's kind of blowing up in the U.S., right? So it's going to depend. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Do you need to make some adjustments? Say, hey, things are getting worse. Let me just add a 10-point increase across the board for everyone. So all those are going to add up to one final number, right? And again, when you're doing that, we have areas to add in your notes just to keep track of everything. But that's our process. We're just going to look, see, hey, this is our warm. This has been our loss experience. I think it's going to change a little bit, and we're going to take that number, multiply it by your current loan population to get a reserve number for that particular loan segment. We'll just go down the list until we have a final number for each one of these that we are comfortable with. A lot of times, though, we'll run into things like this, right? So these guys have a small $3.5 million mortgage portfolio. Over the life of their loans, they've had 0 losses. So at that point, it's saying, hey, the next 6.5 years, you're going to continue to have 0 losses. Well, your examiner's not going to want that, so you need to put something in there. The question then becomes, what is a reasonable and supportable number? Well, that depends, right? You could simply say, hey, I've got this credit union has about $26,000 left to allocate. We can, use that and put it into there, right? We can work backwards a little bit. It says, how much do I really want to have in reserve for my cards? And make an adjustment until you hit that number. But here, looks like all of the credit unions in Louisiana, Peer Group 3, have had about a net recovery of 5 basis points. So even the peers is kind of saying, hey, we're all doing really well in our mortgages. So you know what? Let's jump to the region. This will be the southern region, which has some Midwest states in there too. Not a lot of rhyme and reason there. But here I just switched it, and it is now recalculating all the credit unions for this time frame. We can see now that we've expanded that out, overall in the southern region, we see there's been about 69 basis points of charge-offs. So your number that to get in reserve is never going to be higher than that, right? So let's just say, hey, we're going to have the difference at 30 basis points. There you go, 10 grand in reserve. And then we're going to add in our notes. Again, this number is completely supportable because it falls in between known values, your actual loss rate versus the loss rate for basically everyone, all these credit unions. So great numbers to have here. So another thing to think about when you have no losses in your portfolio. Another thing there is, if you're doing a complex, methodology where you want to slice and dice your loans a little bit more, that will have no impact on your reserve number. You've got no losses, good credit, bad credit. It just doesn't matter. You've had 0 losses. So oftentimes more complex, methodologies or solutions just really aren't worth it. Aren't worth the time or the money to know that you have 0 losses there. Now, a couple things that we can do right before we can get our final number. TDRs are going away under CECL. You're no longer using that to kind of forecast your reserves. But a big but there, we did want to offer the ability to individually assess loans, right? So this particular loan, is having problems. Maybe it's a member that's gone bankrupt. There's going to be a charge off. And typically the problem I see, especially being a small credit union, let's say if you did have like a big truck that's going to get charged off in your new vehicles, you've had no losses. When that hits and shows up in the call report, that's going to just make this huge, right? It's going to kind of blow it up a bit. So what I like to do is kind of individually assess that. Let's preload some of that reserve. So here, let me say it's this member, it's this loan, the loan number, it's coming from new vehicles. Let's say it's 25,000, and we got lucky. They didn't, weren't too rough on it. We can get probably about 23,000 out of that. So we want to keep 2,000 in separate reserve just for that one loan. We have the bulk of the analysis, and then that extra reserve comes in down here. So you can do individual loans. We can do a pool of loans. This is basically, kind of front loading your reserve, increasing it so that when it does show up here in the historic data on your next call report, you already have some money in there ready to go. The last bit that gets added to this is the shortfall for unfunded commitments. This is a new concept for credit unions, but something that the banks have done. Basically, you need to keep a reserve for open lines of credit. Create a reserve on loans you have actually yet to make. So something like credit cards, they are the definition of unconditionally cancelable. Those get zeroed out. You can cut those off at any time. But for anything else, you'll need to keep a small reserve on and look to see how you've worded, say your HELOCs, right? If you can unconditionally cancel those get all zeroed out. But for everything else, we have to jump through some kind of mental hoops here, right? The first is to determine what is the probability that that member will tap into their open line of credit. Well, luckily we found some probability of funding tables off the NCUA. We'll plug those on in. Then we need to determine what is the life of these loans that you have yet to create. And then we need to apply some sort of loss, historic loss rate, again, to loans we have yet to even create. So we were able to pull that data off the call report. So, definitely helps out. At the end of the day, it's adding $233 to this credit union's reserve right there. And that will be a new line item in the call report for 23. So it's typically a very small piece of the puzzle, but that's something you'll have to include in your CECL analysis. Add it all up, get your final number, see what you currently have in reserve, and then you're left with your surplus or shortfall that you can either take back or allocate into other areas of the tool. And that is it. So very easy to use. We know what's happened in the past. You got to make some adjustments to that, right? To say, hey, we're getting better or worse. Are you comfortable with having 139,000 in reserve for this loan segment? Do you want that higher or lower? Is that going to cover your losses for the next 3 years? Those are the kind of questions you're going to be asking yourself. So this doesn't have to be very complicated at all. Once you're done, we'll save all this here, right? We'll save this as a scenario. We'll give it a name. They will all be kept here in your saved scenario. So 6 months from now, we can pull those back up and see exactly what your notes were. Why did you make this adjustment? What was going on at the time? So all that will be here. Nice and very handy to have. It makes creating scenarios very easy. You can do like an optimistic or maybe even a pessimistic scenario. Let's try to say, hey, if things get really bad, what will that look like for us? So very easy to do. When you want to kind of disseminate that information, we do have this export feature where you can create basically an Excel or PDF report of the tool itself. And I've got that right here. This is, again, everything that you'll get on the printout, but here is the summary, all that information there, all your loan level segment level notes will be in here as well. This is going to be key. One of the auditors that we brought on in a recent webinar really kind of stated that they really want to see your thought process. They want to see the flow from the historic losses to where you think you'll be in the future. So very important to keep track of all of that. And then we have everything else, that we looked at here, the loan balances, gross charge-offs, recoveries, all that data is here, the new Q1 segments for this year, all of your historical segment charge-off ratios. The peer data is in here as well. Great to have all this. Again, so convenient to just be able to look and see exactly what your trends have been. Here we have the Q Factor worksheet. All of your segment level notes will be included for that as well. And then we have all the summary graph. Again, just great to have all of this collated, ready to go. Great for a board, even to show your examiner or auditor. All here. More trends, more graphs. And here we have these economic trends that are unfortunately pretty much of little help to us, but hey, this is great. You can tell your examiner, hey, if you looked at U.S. unemployment rate, I have it. Doesn't match my losses at all, and you can move on to something else. Here, individually assessed loan worksheet, and finally the unfunded commitment worksheet. So you get everything you need here. Save those, outside of the program. Keep those on your hard drive, so you can pull those up at any time. Now, there might be instances where you want to create some custom loans, right? Some custom pools. Maybe you do have a segment of loans that you kind of want to separate out, right? So you can certainly do that here. Create the name, apply some historic losses. Now, obviously, this is a custom pool outside of what is available to us on the call report. So you're going to be kind of on this to be on y'all to create some of the loss history here, but maybe have like a pool that you do want to keep separate, indirect lending, participation, something like that. You can certainly put them down here. Just make sure to remove those balances, right? So you're not double counting. That's the only thing I would say. Make sure you're reducing. Like, let's say it's some indirect used vehicles. It's 1 million of them. Well, you want to make sure you make this 8 million and put that 1 million down here, so you're not double counting. So you certainly have the ability to step out of these boxes if ever you need. So you can add some complexity. The biggest thing that you really want to ask yourself though is, do these loans perform significantly different than the parent pool? If not, leave them together. If they are, then certainly you can break them all out and adjust some of the loss history there. So very easy. Now, one thing on the WARM, that is not something that we can see off the call report. So I'll have to look to see. So any WARM tool that you're out there that you're looking at requires this number. So you're going to need to figure out, if you can get this, you can get access to that. Is it something that you have in your core system? Maybe your ALM provider might have that or something close. We do offer the ability to kind of this little estimator tool that you can use to help you with calculating that number. So let's say you do have a weighted average maturity. The difference between a WARM and the weighted average maturity is the prepayment estimate. You need to apply some prepayment estimates of weighted average maturity to get your true WARM. So if you can get that weighted average maturity, plug it in here, plug in your prepayment speed, and boom, you've got your WARM that you can use on a tool. If you don't want to mess with any of this, send us your Aries file. We'll do it for you. It's a little bit extra, but every quarter, send us your Aries and we'll fill all this out for you. You can take these numbers right here off of the summary page and plug them right into the tool. Just a huge time saver. But yeah, if you can get those, fantastic. What that means is this tool is ready to go today. We have the data, your WARMs, you can plug them in and have, completed analysis by the afternoon. So definitely one of the huge advantages to our tool is that it is ready to go. We're using the NCUA's own data against them here, right? We're looking at all this call report data. That's already been vetted. In addition, we've already done an audit on that, a SOC 1 audit on all the data. So everything is good there. You really just be left with running your analysis from month to month or quarter to quarter, depending on how often you want to run that. Now, in addition to that, we have everything you need to check all the boxes, all the CECL boxes, right? Your methodology and white paper. This is great for a board just to briefly explain the tool and why it's appropriate for the credit union or an examiner. Hey, this is what we're using. This is why it works for us. We also have a draft implementation letter, right? A policy template that you can use to help set policy for the use of the CECLSolver at the credit union. I have some versions of other ones that other credit unions have filled out, and you can use that too. So a ton of support is what I'm saying. We have everything you need here. And if you do need help, I don't know if you're familiar with QwickRate, we have some of the best customer service in this industry, and it's no different here on the CECLSolver. Once you sign up, you'll either, I'll be your point person or David Surrey will be my colleague. can really walk you through everything as many times as you need, can have as many users as you need. There's no limit to how many reports you can run. You come in as a member, and then you can have access to everything. We do have a full analytics team here that can really dig into these numbers, or kind of talk to your examiner to help them explain it as well. So tons of help. And finally, one of the cool things we've been doing lately is offering this CECL Coffee Talk webinar. This is the one you're seeing now. It's basically our general CECL demo, right? How's the tool? This is how it works. But the big problem is, there is no guidance on how to do this, right? NCUA is still figuring it out. So they said to us, hey, the next year or two, they're going to take a very light hand and go very easy as we all kind of switch to CECL. So there's going to be a lot of changes between, the next couple of years. So no matter what, any tool that you go with is going to have to be able to be flexible, right? Make adjustments to whatever the changing guidance is. This Coffee Talk webinar is just a great way for us to all figure that out, right? If we have any updates, we'll let you know here, tell you about those updates, how they're going to work, just keep you informed. We are going to, I think, either this one or the next one, we're bringing on an auditor to discuss CECL from an auditor's perspective, right? Get their take on what they're going to be looking at. So not just giving you a tool and say, hey, you're on your own. Here you have just tons and tons of support if you need it. So we can help you through everything, all included there. So fantastic. But yeah, that's our tool. And let me jump back to the presentation here. Now, let me start this off. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm having a boomer moment. Yeah, we'll leave it like this for now. So here, when we send over the slides to you, we're going to include some kind of demo here, references, kind of just say, hey, this is what's on the tool. This has everything, so you can kind of, again, just do a refresh of what everything was there. Being able to save, quick start guides, popping in notes. Now, again, the big changes with this first Q1 call report, you all are familiar with it now, right? Went from these loan segments to all of these, just separating out the commercial lending from the non-commercial lending to kind of coincide more with the banking call report. So while kind of a headache now, at the end of the day, this is going to be a lot nicer, especially for larger credit unions. They'll be able to kind of have their own loss line items there. And again, huge overhaul of asset quality data, right? All these new segments these are all brand new. So this was the biggest change to the call report since I've been, working with credit unions. So massive changes there. And again, a look at the new segments that are on the tool now. So, and going back to that norm, again, if you can get that number, fantastic, you're good to go. If not, we can do it a couple ways. We can help you get that with our spreadsheet, or you can send that data to us. And the data that you need, or what we need, is the loan balance and the maturity date. So typically, you can get that data out of there. We need to know, hey, what loan is the new car, what's a used car, be able to separate things out, but really current balance and the maturity date. So start thinking about that. The first thing I would do is kind of just start thinking about this form. Is that something you have? Is that something you can get? Now, with our tool comes with a bunch of new financial analyst information, so you can look up your credit union, other credit unions, and kind of create your own peer groups, compare your assets to theirs, and just the overall performance of the credit union. So it's something we offer on the banking side. And we're trying to see if that's something that the credit unions would like as well. So it's out there, it's available. And again, you can look at a lot of great metrics. We're all about compiling data from a ton of different sources. That way you can just do the analysis, right? You don't have to worry about collecting everything. We do all that for you. And then the next steps, what's next, right? What's next? Well, first, I always recommend give us a call. Let's set up a demo, right? We can go through, we can take a look at your actual data. And even if you don't have the one, we can plug in some numbers just to get an idea of where you're going to be, right? That's a big question, right? How bad is this going to look? Are we going to be, overly, are we under? Or are we way under? How, what does that look like? And give us a holler. We can at least run through an analysis just to see where you might be and kind of get a better feel for the tool. So definitely recommend reaching out for a demo. We can also offer the pricing there as well. So pricing is asset based, and honestly, like all things QwickRate, we have a price that will fit into any budget. Right? We want this to make sense, and we want it to be cost effective as well. So reach out to us. We'll get all that info. Again, plug in that next coffee talk. If you can, check it out. It is a great one. We're going to have a ton of great info there. So yeah, I would love to see everyone there. And then finally, just a huge thanks to the credit union leagues we've been working with. Building these relationships has just been fantastic. I got back from the Mississippi Credit Union annual meeting a few weeks ago. Had a great time. Fantastic turnout. It was a really great meeting everyone that I've been working with, and I know everyone in Louisiana. We just brought them on as well. Kentucky, great to have y'all too, and I believe West Virginia is coming on soon. So look forward to working with everyone here. So I'll put back on this slide here. Just reach out, info@QwickRate, and we'll get you going. We'll get the CECL thing knocked out for you. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be really easy. At the end of the day, there's not a lot to it. It's you've done this. And this is you've done your reserve analysis before. Things don't have to be so different. So give us a call. We'll get you squared away. Let me look to see. Any questions? No, I don't think got anything. Pretty quiet. So fantastic. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laura, for joining me today, and I look forward to speaking with you all soon. Take care.
We appreciate you, Jason. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Laura. Thanks.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.